High in the Peruvian Andes, a climber hangs by a rope, his partner holding his life in one hand. One wrong move, and they both die. It's not a scene from a movie. This happened, and the decision that came next was one no climber ever wants to face. Cut the rope, or fall with him. This is the true story of Joe Simpson and Simon Yates, and how one of the most dangerous climbs in the world turned into a fight for survival. Not just against the mountain, but against frostbite, hallucinations, broken bones, and the slow crawl back from the edge of death. Welcome to I Should Be Dead. Real people, unreal survival, and one rule: they lived. In 1985, Joe Simpson was 25 years old, a skilled British climber, full of ambition and reckless courage. His partner, Simon Yates, was just as driven. Together, they set their sights on Siula Grande, a 21,000-foot peak in the Peruvian Andes. No one had ever climbed its west face. It was nearly vertical, iced over, and prone to avalanches. But Joe and Simon weren't deterred. They planned a fast, alpine-style ascent, no fixed ropes, no base camp support, and no margin for error. The climb began in perfect weather. For days they pushed upward, carving footholds into ice, hammering pythons into frozen stone, sleeping in hanging bivouacs that swayed over sheer drops. It was punishing: thin air, brutal cold, and constant fear of falling. But after 3 days, they did it. They reached the summit. Only, the real danger hadn't even begun yet. On the way down, the weather turned. Clouds closed in. Visibility dropped. Snow began to fall, and quickly turned into a whiteout. Then it happened. Joe slipped on ice and fell. He didn't just tumble, he plummeted, and when he landed, he heard it, a sickening crack. His leg was shattered, a compound fracture, his tibia driven into his knee. They were still thousands of feet from safety, and now one of them couldn't walk. But Simon didn't leave him. He made a decision few climbers would ever even attempt. He began lowering Joe down the mountain, 300 feet of rope at a time. It was slow, dangerous. Every time Simon braced the rope, he had to dig into ice and hope his anchor held. And Joe, dangling helplessly below, couldn't see where he was being lowered. Then night fell, and on one drop, Simon made a fatal mistake. Joe was lowered over a cliff, and now hung in empty space, unable to move. Simon didn't know. He just felt the rope go tight. For over an hour, they were locked in this impossible stalemate. Joe dangling silently in the void, Simon digging in, losing strength, losing hope. And then, in the darkness, buried in snow, with no communication, Simon made the choice. He cut the rope. Joe plummeted. He fell into a deep crevasse, a hidden crack in the glacier. He should have died on impact, but somehow he didn't. When he came to, he was alone in a cave of ice, his leg destroyed. No food, no water, no idea where Simon was, and no rescue coming. But he didn't give up. He dragged himself across the floor of the crevasse, found a shaft of light, and climbed out. With 2 hands, a useless leg, and sheer willpower, over the next 3 days Joe crawled. Literally crawling. 5 miles across ice fields, rocks, and glaciers. He hallucinated voices, he ran out of water, he fell into more crevasses. At one point, he considered giving up, lying down, letting the cold take him, but some part of him kept going. On the 3rd night, dehydrated and nearly unconscious, he made it back to base camp. Simon, who had survived the descent and believed Joe had died in the fall, was just hours from leaving. Joe called out, Simon heard him, and Joe was rescued. Joe Simpson should have died on that mountain. A broken leg, a fall into a glacier, 3 days without food. He should be dead, but he isn't. His story became a book, Touching the Void, later a documentary. But no words on paper or screen can fully explain what it took to survive. Just 2 men, one impossible mountain, and a choice no one ever wants to make. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. If you want more stories like this, feel free to like, subscribe, and click one of the other survival stories on screen now. Each one is true, each one is unbelievable, and each one proves they should be dead.